Hello and welcome to another album analysis. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the album The Other Side of Make Believe, which is the 7th studio release from the indie rockers Interpol. Now I've got to start off by saying that this album probably isn't what I was expecting the first time I did hear the first single that was released from it in the form of Tony. After the release of 2018's Marauder, I was expecting them to kind of follow suit with this brand new record, keeping a kind of up-tempo, lively kind of sound that they did have on the previous album, and boy was I wrong. Due to the COVID pandemic, this album actually had to be written remotely with all three members spread across the world. This certainly did make it more difficult for the band, and also came at a difficult time where songwriting was quite heavily impacted by what was happening in the world. Because of this, we did see this album take on a much more softer, kind of more intimate sound, and certainly take a big drop in tempo from their previous release. Overall, this has resulted in a slightly different sound than what we are used to hearing from the band over recent years. After the success of El Pintor and also Marauder, this definitely brought a new kind of element to the band that we often really haven't seen before. So without further ado, let's jump into taking a look at it track by track. For the opening song we do have Tony, the first song that we did get to hear, the first little sneak peek we did get of what this album would entail. A great little mid-tempo song, and straight away we've got one of the opening lyrics, "Still in shape, my methods refine." Paul Banks really kind of hinting at the fact that they feel like they've found their own formula, they found the thing that works for them. Now they've been doing it for 25 years, they finally feel like they've settled on their sound. We've also got the lyric, "I like the inspiration, like it's going in the right direction." The band kind of feel they're working their way towards kind of that success. They've always been a very cult kind of band. After they kind of dropped the major labels after Our Love to Admire many years ago, they have kind of stuck to being an independent band, having a very cult following, which they did show through songs on the previous album such as The Rover. We've also got the line as well, "Who are you to doubt us?" The idea that they want to put out the sounds they want to work towards, not what people want to hear. The idea that they're not bothered about the mainstream, they just are happy having that cult following, having fans that want to be there and be along with them for the ride. When I did hear this first track, I really did expect the rest of the album to kind of follow in this style. We're going to see a complete 180 throughout most of this album. Heading straight into track 2, we do have Fables, and straight away we're going to really see the tempo drop. I do love Kessler's work though in this. It has this kind of dreamish tempo, almost like you can walk along to it, like you're in a fable, in a lullaby, in a dreamland, which is something that we kind of are going to see quite a lot of throughout this album. It's something they really seem to focus on. Very haunting kind of sounds, and Paul Banks' vocals certainly are the same on this album as well. Almost like the life has been drained out of him. Could be because it was written during COVID, but definitely no essence of life compared to the previous albums. Much more downtone, much slower kind of pace to this album, which is definitely something that took a little while to grow on me. Then we've got Into the Night, a very gloomy kind of sounding track. The intro to it did actually kind of remind me of Obstacle 1, but kind of almost at a slower pace. But one of the things I really do love about this track that you really want to focus on when you're listening to it is Fogarino's disruptive pattern towards the middle part of the song. Usually you have a drummer kind of keeping everyone in check, kind of being the counterbalance to a lot of the other instruments in a song. However, with this, it gets to the middle part of the song and he's very disruptive. It's kind of all over the place, very scatterbrained in style, but it works. And it's something that can catch you off guard. If you're kind of really attentively listening in, you're going to be caught off, but it's just something that it's great to see a drummer kind of stepping out of kind of not so much a comfort zone, but out of an expected role and kind of throwing a bit of chaos into the album. We've kind of got this almost dreamy, gloomy, haunted-esque thing, and that's what we kind of need, something like that, just to kind of really break it up, throw a bit of disruption in there, and that's what he really does on this track. Following on from that, we have got the very angsty sounding Mr. Credit, a song with lots of sharp, short sounds, very kind of punchy on your ears when you are listening to it. And again, just kind of showing a repertoire of what the band can do. Kessler's been very good at kind of interchanging these in different songs, from going from very long, drawn out notes to something that is very punchy and very short. And we do see this transition on these different songs throughout this album, which is something that does really kind of work and something that he's really mastered over the years. Then towards the middle of the album, we do have Something Changed. Now there's one little subtle thing they do on this track I really enjoy. A very subtle use of the piano, using very soft short notes again, almost kind of adding a lullaby-esque kind of sound to it, kind of making it a lot softer on the ears after the sharpness we did get of the past two songs. And this is something that's really nice. It kind of fits in with the change in the album. They kind of expect the next couple of tracks to be something of a little bit different, and that's what they certainly do. It's kind of signalling a slight change in the direction that the album is going to head towards, almost like they've split it up into different segments. Then we've got Renegade Hearts, which is a bit of a nod back to a lot of their older material. We've got the line, "Draw me a million years and I'll probably make them my home." So the band has been together for such a long time now, they know that what works for them, they know their sound, they kind of almost like blot out the middle section of their career when they joined the major labels, and they didn't really seem to have that success. They prefer a lot of their early material and some of the stuff they've been producing over recent years, kind of almost affirming that this is the sound where they want to belong. They like being that, almost kind of keeping the idea of Joy Division alive, very Ian Curtis kind of sounding vocals, very kind of gloomy sound, and they've really kind of emphasised that on this album. It has taken a much darker undertone compared to a lot of their previous releases. Definitely putting a lot of focus as well on a much slower tempo, which is something we didn't really see too much of. And normally with their albums, I kind of do like those slower paced songs, but there are a lot of them on this, which kind of does make it a little bit overpowering at times. I do kind of think they're at their strongest when they are writing things with a bit more pace and a bit more life to them. Then we've got Passenger, another very low tempo, very slow song. I've got a couple of other great lyrics though. "Free from these fables, we can grow." Almost like the band have got to that point where they've kind of matured enough to realise that we don't aim to be kind of famous and in the mainstream. We know that we can now write our own music. We've got that built up following that are going to listen to our music and be interested in what we produce. And because of this, they're not being forced to kind of take a driving role and kind of have to aim for the chart positions, for things like that. They can just kind of glide along, enjoying their music that they're writing, and really continue to produce it. Then we've got the track Greenwich, and one little feature they do in this track, which I really did actually quite enjoy, was the layered vocals. Kept along, "I got nothing but my own dreams." And again, it's with these layered vocals, it's almost kind of haunting, almost like Paul Banks is kind of in his own head. And it's really kind of a couple of elements that really do tie together quite nicely on this particular track. First time I heard it, I was kind of a bit thrown off by it, but as I kind of listened to it a couple more times, it really did start to come together and see how this is kind of all enveloped in this kind of almost like dreamscapey, kind of in your own mind, whether it be a nightmare or a dream. The idea that you can kind of grow once you're actually living in reality and not just dreaming of where you want to be. Then we've got another one of the singles that was released from this album in the form of Grand Hotel, a very reflective kind of sounding song. And this goes back to the idea of even the album title, The Other Side of Make Believe. If you've seen the artwork with the pen, the point sharpened, almost kind of pointing up against that mirror. Again, it's kind of like this idea of reflections. The band have reflected on their past, on what they've been doing, and they've decided, right, this is what we kind of want to work towards. One other thing I do really love about this track actually was the kind of the guitar work. We've got a lot of ascending and descending chords, almost kind of like it's almost passing of time. You're kind of descending into something or ascending into something, and it's a really great little pattern that they've got going on with this particular track, and it's definitely something, keep your ears out for that, because it really does add a very nice element to this track. Then for Big Shot City, we've got something that Banks loves to do quite a lot. A lot of his lyrics can be very ambiguous. There's never always some necessary meaning to them, although you can kind of guess. Every listener has a different idea of what they mean. For this, we've got the lyric, "I can give you what you see, and a drunken heartbeat up my sleeve will take it up and come home clean." Almost like they've been kind of had this delusion of what they need to produce to kind of get people to listen to them, but now they've kind of realised that no, they should be making their own sound. This is what this album definitely seems to kind of reek of, this idea that they just want to do their own thing, they want to produce the music they want to produce, they're not kind of trying to please a crowd anymore. Then rounding out the album, we have got another great track, Go Easy Palermo. Again, more lyrics, "I'll keep pushing forward, go easy. Now all the obstacles in my way have been falling." Again, they kind of make it sound like they've got through the hardest part of their career. They're really putting a lot of emphasis on this particular album with that, the idea that they've kind of found their sound, they feel refined, and they know what they want to start working towards, which is kind of something that maybe because of the COVID situation, Banks had a lot of time to reflect, and that was a result of this particular album. However, though, I don't feel it is some of their strongest work, if I'm being totally honest. Now, some Interpol fans may completely disagree with me, think it is the best stuff they've done. I certainly think since Marauder, they haven't done a U-turn. They're not going in the wrong direction. It's almost like they've taken a right turn with this particular album. With Marauder, we had kind of Paul Banks full of life, really kind of putting a lot into the music and kind of having that upbeat tempo to it, whereas this is almost like the flip side. It is the other side of that last album. It's almost like they could be two completely different concepts. concepts, but be mashed together to make one big album. Because we've got lots of low tempo, lots of miserable, gloomy kind of sounds, which does mean for the album as a whole, it's not quite as appealing if I'm being totally honest. And for that reason, I'm probably going to say it's a 6 out of 10. There are some really great elements on this album, and I love that they've kind of felt like the shackles are off and they're producing what they want to. But I definitely don't feel the album has as many strengths as their previous releases that they have had over the past few years. That's everything for today's video. As always, please let me know your thoughts about the album in the comments below. Let me know what your favourite track is. I think for me, actually, I'm gonna have to go with Renegade Hearts for this one. I really did enjoy some of the elements that are on there. I'm just kind of affirming that sound of that's where they think they belong. And I will see you in the next album analysis.